Well, good morning, viewers. Today we have a 2015 Grand Caravan, and it's here because the ABS light and check engine light are on. It has a message about stability controls disabled as well. I was actually here last weekend, and I scanned it, and I partially diagnosed it. I'm going to show you what I've found. Okay, so here's the record from the 17th when I scanned it. It had a C0037-1D left rear wheel speed sensor circuit, current out of range, an erratic signal from the left rear speed sensor, and a P0128 thermostat rationality or coolant temperature below the thermostat regulating temperature. So I've cleared the engine code, and I'm sure it's back because I see the light is on. And I did scan it and visually inspect the left rear speed sensor. And I recorded data while driving. On the hoist, I couldn't get it to drop out. Now this is only front wheel drive, so I was spinning the rear wheel by hand and wiggling the wiring, and I couldn't get it to drop out. But you'll see in this recording here, when I road tested it, let's see, let's go to 6 graphs. So here's the left rear speed signal. You can see it's very erratic and dropping out. Let's zoom in a little bit. So you can see it in this compared to the overall vehicle speed, the left front, the right rear, and the right front. You can see the dropouts in there. So I'm pretty sure it needs a wheel bearing because the wheel bearing comes with the speed sensor and about 3 feet of wiring. But to be 100% certain, because the wheel bearing is about $400, I'm going to swap the left and right speed sensor connectors under the vehicle and then take it for a road test and see if this problem moves to the right rear over here. I'll show you what I mean. So as I said, the wheel speed sensor is part of the wheel bearing assembly, and it runs up here by the brake hose and then across the frame and then down to the middle of the body, and here is the connector here. And I had this connector apart and inspected it, and this is the connector for the right rear over here. Now the wiring harness is just clipped here and here. If we switch these two, we should be able to plug the right into the left and the left into the right and then go for a road test. And that would 100% confirm that the problem is in the wheel bearing or the speed sensor wires. It didn't seem to be related to vibration or potholes. It seemed to be doing it just randomly. So I got the left side plugged into the right and the right side plugged into the left. I'm just looking to see if the wires are different colors so one could identify them. Yeah, they are. The right side has a green and a green orange. The left side has a green and a black yellow. So we're going to go for a road test now and monitor the wheel speed signals. So we're going to go for a road test now. I just backed it out of the shop. This is labeled the right rear, but it's actually the left rear. And this one's labeled left rear, and it's actually the right rear. So if it is the wheel bearing now, it should show up as an erratic signal on the right rear because I've switched the two connectors. So I'm going to drive this thing and see how it works. So I'm driving it down a gravel road, and you can see the right rear speed signal is dropping out. First I went about half a kilometer and it didn't do anything. Sorry for the bumps. It's hard to drive and record at the same time. So it's definitely the wheel speed sensor or the wheel bearing assembly. There's no play in that wheel bearing. There's no roughness in the wheel bearing. So it's got to be something in the electronics in the speed sensor that's defective. So we're going to bring it back and change the wheel bearing now. So conversely, if you didn't have a scan tool that could graph the wheel speed signals, could have just swapped the connectors and see if the fault code moves to the right rear like it has. So after that short road test, I got a right rear wheel speed sensor signal erratic, C0037-1D, which is the opposite of what we had on the other side. So we're going to change the wheel bearing now. So remove the wheel, brake caliper assembly. We're not doing the brakes. The brakes are in decent shape, so we're going to just take the whole brake caliper off. two 18 mil headed bolts at the back here. Disconnect all the clips on the wheel speed sensor harness and route it out. Now we have to get this rotor off. It's rusted on here. If they would drill this thing and put two threaded holes in it. There we go. If I was changing the rotor, I would hit it on the back of the surface like that. Now there are 4 bolts that hold the wheel bearing in from the back. Spray some penetrating fluid on the threads of the bolts here. And we'll figure out what size they are. Hopefully we can get them with an impact gun from the back side through the spring with a long extension. So there are 4 16 mil headed bolts. The back of the bearing housing. And I'm using a 90-degree impact gun because it's low profile. I've gotten 2 out so far. There's mud packed around them, so you have to drive the socket on. So I tried hammering on the end of this flange here, but it won't come out. It's rusted into the knuckle or into the trailing arm. So I use this bolt to knock one of the wheel studs out. You can get it out through the hole where the wheel speed sensor goes in, or you can cut it off. I guess that there's nothing behind the backing plate in that spot. I've got one of those hub knockers. I don't like it. I bought one of the ones that bolts on with the flange, but then it pushes out here and there's nothing to push to. I find this usually works better. Let's try right here. There just happened to be a hole right there in the housing back there. This is just a body bolt and a nut. As you can see, that works pretty decent. Sometimes homemade tools are better. So we clean up this mounting area, find the one bolt I dropped down here. Actually, 2 bolts I dropped in here. Clean the bolts up, clean the flange up, clean the backing plate up, give it a coat of paint, and reassemble. Scraper. Bought that air scraper a few years ago doing a gasket on a 4-liter inline 6-cylinder Jeep oil pan gasket. Still some rust there. sure to wear your safety glasses. We'll get this all cleaned up. So there's a new bearing installed. I used a SKF bearing. That's the part number in case you're interested. 41 foot-pounds for the bolts. Cleaned up all the rust on the mounting surfaces and the bore and the backing plate. Just clean the really loose rust off and give it a coat of paint. Now we'll put the rotor on, clean the inside of the brake rotor flange where it goes on here, and reassemble this thing and then reconnect the wires. So there's a chart of the torque specs. The hub mounting bolts I said are 41 foot-pounds. The brake caliper mounting bolts are 74 foot-pounds, and the wheel lug nuts are 100 foot-pounds. It's all back together. Wires are connected. Dielectric grease on the connectors. And we're going to go into the anti-lock brake system and clear the codes. Got the battery charger on it, key on, engine off. And then I'm going to look at data and make sure the speed signals work. Okay, wheel speed left rear and wheel speed right rear. So I'm going to go turn the left rear wheel. Spinning it now. I can't turn it very smooth, but it's turning. Turning the right rear. Okay, so the speed sensor wires are connected to the correct inputs. Codes are cleared. I'm going to take it for a final road test after I change the thermostat, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be repaired. So unless there's some anomaly that comes up, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.